Queen Elizabeth I was not merely a queen. She was a living legend. Known as the Virgin Queen, she adorned herself in lavish gowns decorated with jewels and ruled with both intellect and authority. Her reign is remembered for the triumph over the Spanish Armada and for establishing England's strength as a Protestant nation. However, beneath her glamorous exterior, the layers of makeup and shining pearls concealed a woman filled with insecurities, pride, and obsession. She was deeply concerned with her public image, leading her to adopt some rather peculiar hygiene habits. In her era, personal hygiene wasn't primarily about health, but rather about appearance. Queen Elizabeth transformed her cleanliness routine into a performance art, fearing that water might make her ill. She grew increasingly anxious about aging, treating her body as a sacred vessel, not to be tarnished by time or soap. In this video, we'll explore 5 of the most bizarre and shocking things Elizabeth did to maintain her cleanliness, culminating in a surprise you won't believe. Sugar addiction. Elizabeth harbored a powerful addiction, sugar. At the time, sugar was a rare and costly commodity, often imported from distant lands, meaning that most people might never have the chance to taste it in their lifetime. For the Queen of England, however, sugar was omnipresent. It wasn't merely a sweet treat for her, she indulged in it to an extravagant extent. Her royal banquets featured delicacies like candied violets, sugar-coated fruits, sweet almond marzipan, and desserts drenched in syrup. For Elizabeth, consuming sugar wasn't just a pleasure. It was a display of England's wealth and burgeoning power. However, this sweet obsession carried severe consequences. In the 1500s, dental care was rudimentary, with toothbrushes often being rough and most people resorting to twigs, rags, or crushed eggshells to clean their teeth. The Queen, in a twist of irony, created a homemade toothpaste using sugar and herbs. Yes, the very substance rotting her teeth became her method of oral hygiene. She compounded this mistake by using abrasive powders that eroded her tooth enamel. Over time, her once regal smile devolved into something shocking. Foreign visitors remarked upon it, noting by the 1590s that her teeth were black, broken, or entirely missing. Her breath was reputedly so foul that it made those around her physically uncomfortable, and her speech was often difficult to understand due to her decaying teeth. Despite this, Elizabeth flatly refused to let physicians extract her teeth. Known for her stubbornness and fear of pain, she was so resistant that one of her courtiers even volunteered to undergo a tooth extraction in front of her as a demonstration. Imagine someone willingly screaming in agony just to persuade her to take action. Strangely enough, rather than ridicule her decayed smile, the noblewomen in her court emulated it. They blackened their own teeth with soot and charcoal to mirror the Queen's appearance. In Elizabeth's court, even tooth decay became a status symbol. If the Queen had black teeth, it was a sign of beauty, power, and wealth. The darker the smile, the richer the person must be. In a world where every action of the Queen set the trend, even rotting teeth turned desirable. That's the influence of royalty. Bathing habits. You may have heard the infamous quote, "I bathe once a month whether I need to or not." Some attribute it to Queen Elizabeth I, while others dismiss it as merely a legend. Regardless, it highlights the perceptions of cleanliness in the 1500s and how divergent they were from modern views. Water was considered dangerous, believed to carry illness and weaken the body by introducing miasma, or bad air, which was thought to spread diseases like the plague. For many, bathing became risky business. As a result, Queen Elizabeth strategically avoided it. Instead of washing with soap and water, she relied on an alternative method, changing her linen undergarments, called shifts, several times a day. People believed that the soft fabric could draw out sweat, dirt, and toxins without the use of water. When she did freshen up, she opted for rose water, vinegar, or herbal concoctions created by her royal apothecaries, gently dabbed on her skin by handmaids. This process was a slow, deliberate ritual focused on appearance rather than hygiene. Her body was treated as a sacred object, demanding perfection at any cost. Why not simply take a bath? Because it was no trivial endeavor. Elizabeth's palaces lacked plumbing and running water. A bath meant dragging in a hefty wooden tub, heating dozens of buckets of water, and summoning at least 3 servants to assist in the process. It was akin to orchestrating a royal event. Thus, while the public deemed her clean, she wore hundreds of gowns crafted from fine silk and velvet, and smelled like a bouquet of flowers and spices. She possessed perfumed gloves and scented handkerchiefs, ensuring that her appearance was impeccable from head to toe. However, all of this constructed an illusion of cleanliness that lacked any genuine sanitation. There was no scrubbing, rinsing, or soap involved. Elizabeth's aversion to bathing stemmed not from laziness or a lack of cleanliness, but from a desire to maintain an unblemished image. Water, in her mind, could smudge her carefully applied white makeup, disturbing the illusion of divinity she had crafted. In her worldview, a queen was not meant to be seen as merely human. Make up few faces in history are as iconic as Queen Elizabeth's. Her visage, porcelain white and smooth, was a meticulously painted facade, not created for beauty, but for power. In her era, pale skin denoted wealth and social status, even considered a divine favor. Hence, the queen took this to an extreme. She didn't merely apply makeup. She used it to forge a myth, presenting a flawless version of herself that could never age or diminish. One of her favorite products was Venetian ceruse, a toxic concoction of white lead and vinegar that created a striking appearance, but was literally eating away at her skin. This poison absorbed into her body, causing rashes, open sores, and scarring. As her true face suffered under the weight of numerous layers of makeup, she fortified her routine, continuously adding more color until her visage resembled a frozen mask. Her lip color was no less concerning. She used bright red pigments made from mercury, one of the deadliest substances known to man. The more she applied, the more it affected her health. Her mood shifted, her memory faltered, her body weakened, often leaving her with trembling hands, classic signs of mercury poisoning. Yet the queen was oblivious to the fact that she was harming herself each time she painted her face. Why persist? Because her visage extended beyond her personal identity? It represented England. Her image was her power, making her seem ageless, almost divine. She restricted painters from depicting her true features, instead requiring them to follow official templates based on younger portraits. No matter how much she aged, her paintings portrayed her as eternally youthful and perfect. Moreover, she forbade natural light, relying instead on candles and shadows to obscure her reality. In her later years, her face grew so fragile that whispers circulated that touching it might cause serious damage to her carefully applied makeup. Washing her face was a rarity. Why cleanse it when it meant eliminating the illusion and revealing the aging woman concealed beneath the mask of the Virgin Queen? Historians still debate whether she was aware of the makeup's detrimental effects. But one thing is evident: Elizabeth prioritized the facade over her own health. She willingly sacrificed her well-being to uphold the legend of Gloriana. To truly grasp Queen Elizabeth's approach to hygiene, one must understand her most profound fear: losing control. Every element of her appearance, from her painted face to her perfumed gloves and chosen scents, was not merely for aesthetics. It was a means of maintaining power and camouflaging vulnerability. In her time, bathing was not just rare, it was considered dangerous. Water was thought to transmit disease, and to bathe was to expose oneself both literally and symbolically. It was considered intimate and soft, a quality Elizabeth would not allow herself to embody, especially having witnessed her mother, Anne Boleyn, suffer at the hands of the court. To her, a naked body signified vulnerability. Consequently, she avoided water, constructing her own narrative of cleanliness, one grounded in perfume and ritual. Each day she enveloped herself in potent fragrances. Her maids concocted rose water, lavender oil, vinegar infusions, and herbal mixtures from the palace still rooms. These potions were not intended to clean, but to mask odors and maintain the illusion of freshness. A few drops behind the ears, a dab on the wrists, and a scented handkerchief tucked into her sleeve allowed her to drift through her court like a living flower garden, untouched by earthly smells. Elizabeth carried pomanders ornate balls filled with herbs and resins concealed in her attire or worn on her belt. Whenever an unpleasant odor drew near, she would raise one to her nose, inhaling the controlled world she had orchestrated. These objects served a dual purpose. They provided comfort and conveyed a clear message: I am not like you. I do not smell of the world." Even her attire was a vital part of this performance, with perfumed gloves, oil-soaked handkerchiefs, and voluminous dresses designed to conceal her body and trap odors. She was known to gift her courtiers perfumed gloves, a present that signified her image, not her skin. As for her hair, it remained infrequently washed. Washing was perceived as hazardous, especially for someone with so much makeup. Instead, her natural hair was stiffened with sugar water and egg whites, then powdered extensively. As she aged and began to lose her hair, likely due to years of lead and mercury exposure, she turned to wigs, especially auburn ones, to maintain her image. Underneath all that powder and perfume, however, her body was deteriorating. Years of toxic makeup had left her skin scarred, thin, and blistered. Rumors of peeling skin, open sores, and a face too damaged to touch circulated among her subjects. Regardless, she continued to layer on the makeup, refusing to confront the truth. She famously banned mirrors from her private quarters, ensuring that no one, not even herself, could witness her reality. It is said that Elizabeth had a specific servant whose sole duty was to powder her shoulders privately, guaranteeing that no one would see her true skin. Elizabeth had become a prisoner of her own illusion. Bathing was not merely overlooked due to inconvenience. It was avoided because it meant stripping away the mask. To cleanse her body was to acknowledge its aging and vulnerability, something Elizabeth refused to accept. She had spent her life constructing a persona that transcended humanity. In her final years, she carried a scented walking stick. Whenever she encountered foul-smelling courtiers, she would raise it to her nose, not just to block the odor, but to remind everyone, "I am the queen. I do not belong to your world." Her body had evolved into a symbol of her crown, needing to remain perfect even at the cost of truth. To Elizabeth, cleanliness was not linked to health. It was tied to an image of invulnerability. Waste management. From the outside, Queen Elizabeth I's palaces appeared to be heavenly bastions, with grand stone walls, gilded ceilings, lush carpets, and corridors resonating with music. However, step beyond this royal facade, and the reality was far less glamorous. There were no toilets, no sinks, no plumbing. Indeed, behind the beauty, the Queen resided in an environment that reeked of waste. Her most private toilet was an ornate wooden chair known as the close stool, which appeared elegant on the surface but concealed a simple ceramic pot for waste. This chamber pot had to be emptied manually, cleaned, and perfumed multiple times a day, a task not completed by a servant but by a man of royal status known as the groom of the stool. Don't let his title mislead you. He was no mere janitor. This honored noble was selected for his loyalty and discretion, assisting the Queen not only with her personal needs but also in matters of state and discretion. In the strange realm of the Tudor court, access to the Queen during her most intimate moments had profound political implications. Yet the palace was rife with unpleasant realities. There were no flushing toilets, only chamber pots, buckets, and bowls used by everyone, which were unceremoniously dumped into cesspits hidden beneath the floors or just outside the palace walls. The labor of cleaning this waste fell upon individuals dubbed gong farmers or night soil men. They worked under the cover of darkness, hauling buckets of human waste through dim hallways and narrow staircases, doing their best to avoid spillage as they emptied their loads into open trenches. The stench was oppressive and everlasting. To mask the odor, the palace burned herbs like lavender, rosemary, and sweet marjoram. People sprinkled flowers on the floors and laid down straw or rushes soaked in oils to help capture the bad smells. However, these rushes weren't cleaned frequently, and dirt, hair, crumbs, and decay gathered beneath them, creating a hidden blanket of filth. Even the Queen could not escape the stench. She would move her court from palace to palace, not only for political reasons but to elude the stench that accumulated with each passing day. The longer she remained in one location, the more the waste problem manifested itself. No amount of perfume could conceal this reality forever. This was the true face of royal life, a world where gold and velvet draped over decay and disease, where the most powerful woman in England endlessly battled the odors that pervaded her kingdom. Queen Elizabeth did not ascend to the throne by chance. She reigned with strategy, splendor, and an arsenal of deception. Her hygiene practices were not simply lax, they were calculated. Each foregone bath, every spritz of rose water, every powdered wig contributed to a grand performance. In a society where a woman's strength could be shattered by a mere rumor, Elizabeth sculpted herself into something untouchable, ageless, and beyond human constraints. She understood the truth. To bathe would risk the facade. Water could wash away her power. An unmasked face could invite scrutiny. A distinctly aging body could shatter the illusion she had painstakingly constructed over decades. So instead, she donned powder, sprayed perfume, applied layers of paint, and posed as a living legend. While Elizabeth I may not have adhered to today's standards of cleanliness, her image was meticulously crafted. In her world, soap and water were not allies of health. They were threats to her power. She didn't simply endure. She mastered the art of being seen while remaining unknown. Ultimately, her true cleanliness resided not on her skin, but in her public persona. For a queen, maintaining an image was everything. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to support our work. Never miss an upload. Like this vid, drop a comment and share it with others to help us grow this historical community.